Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing Force of Nature. This was directed by Emile Hursh and stars Emile Hursh, Mel Gibson and a variety of others. The film really focuses on a gang of thieves in Puerto Rico who plan a heist during a hurricane and encounter trouble when a cop tries to force everyone in the building to evacuate due to the storm. Look, I thought this was a solid action movie. It's not brilliant, it's a little bit by the numbers, but I found it still engaging and entertaining enough. I think there's enough small depths to the characters that you sort of get a bit of understanding who they are and you can care about them a little bit. There's not a lot of depth in regards to these particular characters. I like the fact it's set during this hurricane, during this storm, and these moments when the people there, the cop, and the people living there who are still there, he's trying to evacuate, all have to fight against this gang of thieves where this storm rages outside. I like it's sort of set in one location in this apartment block. I like there's only a handful of people who are unwilling to leave, and we get to learn who they are only by a small amount, but it's kind of interesting anyway. I think all the acting's solid. Emile Hursh is really good here. He's an actor I've always liked. I've liked him ever since Girl Next Door, but he hasn't had a real great career. He hasn't been in really great films. There's been a handful of them that were solid performances, but the films weren't great. He's a fascinating sort of actor, and I think he's really solid here, and he's sort of the main focus in a lot of ways of the film, even though we do have other people within it. He plays Cardillo, and when we first meet him, he's the detective in New York, and due to a certain call out and a tragedy he suffers, he's ultimately removes himself from that position and in that job, and ultimately ends up in Puerto Rico where he's working behind a desk. He's keeping separated from things. He doesn't want to get involved in anything. He doesn't want to go out on dealing with people. He just wants to sit behind this desk because he doesn't want to get involved in anything in case something bad happens once again. But his captain ultimately forces him to take a van out to find any stragglers left behind and get them inside before the hurricane ultimately takes control. He has a partner named Jess, played by Stephanie Kao. And it's really about these two. She's sort of this young female cop who really wants to make a way in her career and wants to really be known and she's sort of a driven character. But when she comes up against Cardillo, it's just like he's sort of given up and she's young and wise-eyed like he used to be. And it's sort of how these two sort of bond in a way. They clash to begin with, but then they bond. And this is where it kind of comes kind of interesting. And throughout the film, he has moments where he ultimately regains his strength. He regains what's important to him and slowly becomes the cop he was at the beginning of the film, which I really liked. When we get to the apartment block, we're introduced to Kate Bosworth's character, Troy, and she plays the daughter of Ray, Mel Gibson's character. She's a doctor, but she's ultimately trying to get her father out of there. He's unwell and she wants to get him to the hospital during this sort of thing, and he doesn't want to leave, and it's the conflict between these two. You really start to see the relationship between these two people. Ultimately, he gets involved in the remaining group to take on the gang of thieves, which I really liked. And she's another actress I've been a big fan of. I've liked her for a number of years, and I thought she was really great as Lois Lane in Superman Returns. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I thought she did a really solid job as Lois Lane. But there's been a variety of roles that I really liked her, and I've been a big fan of her ever since Win a Day with Tan Hamilton, this comedy she did in the early noughties, which I really liked as well. But she really hasn't had a great career either. There's lots of ups and downs, there's good roles here and there, but it's really just been sort of bit parts, and this is an example of where she's able to shine a little bit more. Not in the grand scale of other films she's done, but just a bit more than she usually would. And she's solid, very solid in his performance here. And the bond between Emile Hursh's character and hers is really strong, really interesting to watch develop throughout the film. Ultimately, there's Mel Gibson playing Ray, this ex-cop who's unwell, who doesn't want to leave his house, who doesn't really give a shit about the storm happening outside. He's convinced once he goes to hospital he'll never come out again, so he's really sort of taking a stand ultimately and not going out the way everybody expects him to, and he's just sort of being a strong, sturdy character. And he plays a big role in the film, divulging information about who the gang of thieves really are and who he is as a person and what he's been doing and why he's trying to ultimately take care of these particular gang. I really liked all these elements, and even though all the acting was solid and it was a good action film, I think Mel Gibson really steals the show in a lot of ways. He ultimately puts a different spin on the tough guy action hero that he has been previously in his career, and sort of puts another level to that and another direction, and I kind of like that. He's sort of crabby, he has some great one-liners, he's sort of mean and gruff, and he's sort of really playing his age, which I really liked. And I think he's something that really stuck out for me in this film. There's a decision made with his character that I don't really agree with, but I can see why it's done. It's sort of a motivator for the daughter, but I just feel that the decision made, they could have made a better decision in regards to it, but I guess they decided that was the best way to deal with that particular character. I think the fight sequences in it are solid. There's some good sort of camera work, there's good use of lighting and darkness, and the effects they use of the storm is really effective within the film. I found it engaging, enthralling and interesting, and I thought it was kind of an entertaining film, but just not great. The things I didn't quite enjoy as much about this film as I could have. I felt that there's particular storylines they introduced that I never really go anywhere with, I never really do anything with, especially Emile Hursh's Cardillo's character, of what happens to him at the beginning of the film. We find out what that was, but it sort of feels like this is just something to give him a bit of depth, to give him something to overcome, I guess. I just felt this was handled a lot better in films like the remake of Assault on Precinct 13. I thought that was a really effective way to use this sort of storyline and how it comes back full circle, where this film didn't really use it in a full circle way like it could have. I think some of the humour didn't quite work, some of the dialogue's a little clunky in parts, and I think the villain is just really weak. He's a really, really weak villain that we don't know a lot about. He tries to be intimidating, but he just really isn't. There's not much about him that's really intimidating, and his motivation for what he's doing isn't quite clear. There's choices he makes throughout the films and actions he does that just doesn't make sense for his character. But I can see what they were going for. I just felt it could have done with a little more detail in that character, maybe a different actor who could bring something unique and different to it, and it could shine in that role. Feels like it's trying to go for this drama thing, but there's humour in it, and sort of going for a buddy cop sort of film in a way. But what can I say? I was entertained from start to finish. It just wasn't great, and when I felt it could have been a lot better. Final thoughts. Really, I guess it's about people overcoming things. It's about people go of all the stuff that they hang on to, all the guilt and all the sadness, or it feels like they're all trying to move towards something and a different direction in their life. And I think that's kind of what it feels like to me and what it's trying to say. I'm going to give Force of Nature 3 out of 5. Look, it was okay. It wasn't brilliant, it wasn't fantastic, but I was entertained. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.